So, you guys want to see a Decora doll, huh? Well, hi everyone! Welcome back to my channel, and a very warm welcome if you're new. Today's video is very exciting because it's part of an extra colorful Pride collab with some of my doll friends. I'm a little late, so I hope you'll forgive me, and I hope you all had a fantastic Pride month. After making Mitsu over here, I was eager to make her a little jfashion friend, so today's collab theme is Rainbow jfashion. Joining me in this collab is Rainstorm Creations, Cute and Cursed, Blurred Colors Art, Stitchwick Creations, Boho Punks, Nolumbo Dolls, Summoning Dragon Illustrated, Telly Dollies, and Electric Bunny. Be sure to check out their videos in the playlist below if you haven't yet. Last year for Pride, I made a doll based on my own flag, but this year I wanted to do something more inclusive and feature as many flags under the rainbow as I could find. And what better jfashion to represent this rainbow theme than Decora Kei? I've been itching to make a Decora doll for ages, but I hesitated since it's been done quite a bit here on YouTube and I didn't want you guys to be bored. But then I remembered Pastel Decora exists and I just had to do it. In case you don't know what Decora Kei is, Cybergirl does a really great job of explaining it, so I'll leave links to some of those videos for you below. Okay, without further ado, let's get into it. For this doll, I decided to use a G3 Clawdeen wolf. I'm focusing on inclusivity, so I thought making a person of color would fit well. Plus, I just really wanted to make a doll with side ears, and Clawdeen is perfect for that. Her hair is already cut off, but let's cut it even shorter, as close to the scalp as we can. To remove her head, dunk the doll in some freshly boiled water to soften the vinyl. G3 heads are a bit harder than G1, so this step is important if you don't want to break a neck peg or something. When the head is squishy after a few minutes, take her out of the water. Protect your hand with a cloth or something and try to wrangle the head off. I like to do it until it's over this first bump in the peg, and then I use some tools to try and free the little side pegs. There we go. Haha! I have triumphed! Once her head is removed, we can get rid of the leftover hair. I like to use one of these metal cuticle pushers to scrape around on the inside of the scalp to pull the plugs inside. When they're all inside, take tweezers to remove them through the neck hole. Next, I soak a cotton wipe in some pure acetone and try that thing where I take off her entire face in one go. I squish her face a bit to make sure I get into all the cracks and crevices until all the factory paint is gone. I also wipe her with a baby wipe afterwards to clean off any leftover acetone. To make it easier for me to get her head back on later, I like to cut these little side pegs shorter and shorten the top of the peg so it looks like this. I love Clawdeen's face mold, but I really dislike these fur pieces they gave her at the sides, so I'm using a craft knife to cut those off. That does leave some rough edges though, so I grind them down using this mini rotary tool. It's not perfect, but I think this is as smooth as I'll get it. To make those side ears I mentioned, we have to cut off Clawdeen's regular ears. Much like with the G3 dolls, this leaves gaping holes in her scalp, but we'll get to that later. For now, I want to reposition them to the sides of her head like this. To do that, I fill the hollow insides of the ears with some hot glue and embed a pin in there. When the glue dries, it adds structure to the ear and keeps the pin in place, which means I can stab them into her head like this and mark off where I'll attach them later. Cute! Let's set those aside and work on her hair. A while back, I saw this picture on Instagram by an artist called Musoke, and I fell in love. It was part of the inspiration for my doll, especially the eyes and the hair. I knew I had some yarn in my stash that this picture reminded me of, so I promptly decided to give her thick pastel dreadlocks. I'm going for a half-up hairstyle with 2 buns, so I start by cutting lengths of all of my yarn. These thin ones are for the little braids at the sides, but I also cut the thicker yarn to the same length. Just look at all these pretty colors! I put an extra big needle in my rerouting tool this time, since these are really thick fibers compared to regular doll hair. Then fold the yarn in half before slipping it onto the tool. I widen the existing holes in her scalp before stabbing it into the head, and I alternate between the different colors. Because the holes are so small, in some areas I had to carefully cut between 2 holes and widen them with a pencil before routing, just so I could fit the yarn in there. But on the plus side, I didn't have to plug every hole because the yarn is so chunky. I root all the way down her part and hairline, and in the front here I add those thinner strands and braid them. In the back I also root a little patch where her half up half down hair will part. Even though this yarn is pretty thick, I'm always scared it'll pull out somehow, so I'm still going to glue it. But what to do about these ear holes? Let's first tie off the bottom half of her hair so we won't lose the part. As a temporary solution, I cover the holes with a bit of masking tape. Hopefully it'll be enough to keep the glue from leaking out while it dries. I tie off the top parts of her hair as well, and squirt some of my favorite all-purpose tacky glue in there. Now I can carefully mush it around with a chopstick so it covers all the hair. Once that dries, we can bind the hair away and cover it up with a piece of fabric and some pins to secure it in place. Now that that's done, we can add her ears permanently. I'm going to glue them with a 2-part epoxy glue. It's very strong and hardens via chemical reaction, so I mixed equal parts resin and hardener to form the glue. Once mixed, I spread some glue onto the ear and used the pin to embed it in her head. It hardens fairly quickly, so I just hold on to it for a while. Oh, they look adorable! Off camera, I carefully reattach her head, and luckily there were no cracks in the glue. I bought some epoxy sculpt to try out for the first time, and will use it to cover the gap between her ears and head. First, I put on some gloves to protect my skin. Much like the epoxy glue, I need to mix together equal parts A and B of the clay until it has the uniform color. I have to say this was a lot easier to mix than my usual putty. I add a little worm to the gap in the ears that I want to cover, and use some water and a silicone tool to mush it in and smooth it out. With the leftover putty, I sculpt her some earrings. Now we just need to leave this to harden overnight. In the meantime, let's shift gears to her clothes, shall we? I made the patterns using the plastic wrap and tape method, and cut it from a variety of different fabrics. Since she's rainbow themed, I thought colorful stripes would be cute. For her skirt, I have a strip of this rainbow ombre tulle, which I'll gather and attach to an elastic waistband. So, I measure a piece that's long enough to sit tight around her waist, but also stretched enough to go over her hips, and cut it. Underneath that, I think I'll use this white mesh that my friend Lucía sent me in a box swap we had a while ago. I also cut pieces of elastic for the top of her leg warmers. For those, I want to use some fluffy fabric to mimic fleece leg warmers I've seen some Decora folks wear. Off camera, I sew her shirt, leggings, skirt, and leg warmers. But now we need to finish and decorate them. First, I sew some snaps to the back of her shirt. That way it can open and close easily. I left the sleeves kind of long because I'm looking for a cute oversized look. For the print, I drew this totally not a Care Bear in Photoshop and printed it on heat transfer paper. I did a test patch to make sure it would work with my mini straightener. Then I removed the backing paper and used a scrap piece of fabric to protect it while I clamp it with the straightener. The heat melts the glue and helps it fuse to the fabric. For the difficult corners, I use my straightener directly, but I make sure not to press for too long since I don't want to burn it. I think it came out pretty cute. What do you think? I also sew a snap to the back of her leggings. For her skirt, I hook a safety pin into one end of the elastic. This makes it easier for me to feed through the waistband, where I left it open. Once through, I can remove the safety pin and sew the two edges of the elastic together to form a loop. With a bit of fine-tuning, it looks like this. And this ribbon keeps it from sliding up too far. I do the elastic for the leg warmers in exactly the same way. Since she'll be wearing her shoes over her leggings, I put them on the doll and protect the feet with some plastic wrap and masking tape. Doing this also makes sure there's enough wiggle room for her feet to slip in and out of the shoes. I want to make her some purple platform Crocs, so I mix pink polymer clay with blue until I have this nice warm purple color. This I can then mold into the basic shape of heels before squishing her feet into it. For the top half of the Croc, I shape kind of like a half moon and cover her toes in it. Once attached, they look like this. From here, I can sculpt and mush the clay around to get the right shape. It took me a few attempts though, and at first they looked more like clogs, but I persevered, adding the little straps in the front and adding more details. I poked the holes in the top with a needle and shaved off some bits where I felt that they were too thick. I also determined that they weren't high enough to be considered platforms, so I added some thickness to the soles. With their shape finally right, I added the straps again, which I had taken off at some point, I guess, and added some detail with my cuticle pusher. That's looking better. With the needle, I added some texture, and after some more holes, they look like this. Because if I squash these after working on them for 2 days, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna weep. After taking them off without squishing them, I take them to the oven and bake them for 30 minutes at 130 degrees Celsius. This hardens the clay so that I can use a little woodcutter to add detail to the bottom of the shoes. I like doing this little foot shape to remind me which shoe goes on which foot. I also add horizontal lines like platform Crocs have to give them grip, which you can see from the side. Time for one of my favorite parts, the decorating. I found as many pride flags as I could find and printed them teeny tiny on a bit of pearlescent cardboard. To dome them, I add a little blob of UV resin and spread it around with a needle, then cure them under my UV lamp. It took about 3 minutes total to cure. Now they're nice and shiny. Over the years, I have amassed an impressive number of beads and trinkets, so let's use some of those today. The most defining feature of Decora fashion is, as the name suggests, decorating or adorning yourself with a lot of accessories. A lot of people confuse pastel Decora with Fairy Kei because of the similar color scheme, but they actually don't look much alike. Where Fairy Kei is more concerned with the outfit itself, Decora doesn't really care what you're wearing as long as you decorate it to the fullest. So to help her outfit lean more towards Decora, I start by adding a rainbow chain of colorful seed beads and stars to her skirt. I do this with a needle and thread so I can sew it to the inside of the skirt and attach it that way. I also use a thread to make her some colorful bracelets. With pink and purple beads, I make her a long necklace, which I attach a little rainbow charm to. I also have these funky twisty noodle bead things, which I cut shorter to make her some bangles. I drill a hole through one of the flags and attach it to the rainbow bracelet with a jump ring. I do pretty much the same for the other bracelets and make her a little rainbow choker. But I don't stop there. No pair of Crocs are complete without a few gibbets, so I glue some more flags and trinkets to them to decorate them as well. And let's add some more to her leg warmers, why not? Now, she still needs her rainbow bag. I use my, I'm not actually sure what this is called in English, but I use that thing to draw a circle on some thick cardboard and draw a line down the middle to make 2 half moons. These I cut out and glue them to a piece of pink fabric with a rectangle of cardboard in between them. I'm leaving some fabric around the edges and cut some notches into it to make it easier to fold over and glue down. Once that dries, I glue a bean-shaped piece of fabric to hide the exposed cardboard. For the sides of the bag, I just glue little strips of pink ribbon like so. You can also do this with a strip of hemmed fabric, but I like the shininess the ribbon adds to the bag. To finish it off, since the fabric I used is a little bit see-through, I cut another bean shape out of pink faux leather and glue that all around the exterior of the bag. This also makes those ribbons neater and more secure. I've had these acrylic paint markers for a while and thought that they could work well to make the rainbow. It looked promising, so I went ahead and drew the colors onto the leather. Unfortunately, some of the colors dry down a bit dark, so I go over those with pastel paint and a brush. While I have those out, I use them to give her a cute rainbow manicure and some rings. So darn cute. For the cloud, I glue some white pom-poms to the bottom of the bag. I make the strap just like I made her necklace and rainbow chain, with a thread and pastel rainbow beads. I also added one of these closures, so I need to sew a jump ring to the other side for it to hook onto. And of course, I finish it off with some more trinkets to decorate it. Before we start her face up, I want to color match the epoxy to her skin, so I start by mixing some Vallejo Game Air paints until I get a kind of cool brown. I just painted it on with a brush, and I'm setting it aside to dry. While it dries though, I decided to use those nifty paint markers again for her earrings. I do end up going over them later with some paint as well to make the colors more pastel. After that dried, I put on my gas mask and take her outside for a layer of Citadel sealant. It doesn't quite show up on camera, but the spots I painted over at the sides of her face were a bit too visible, so I start by blushing her ears and cheeks with some red and brown soft pastels to try and make the difference less obvious. I extend the blush over her cheekbones and eyelids, which is a makeup look I see in a lot of jfashion. And simply because it's cute, I blush her little nose too. In the areas where I feel like there's a bit too much blush, I wipe it away with my kneaded eraser. I also added some pink pastels to her lips and a little bit of green to her upper eyelids. With purple, I start mapping out where I want her eyebrows to go. After another layer of sealant, I can jump in with my pencils. I use a color slightly darker than her skin tone to draw details like her nostrils, the lines of her lips, eyelid creases, and the basic shape of the eyebrows. Because Clawdeen's face sculpt has such prominent eyelids, I'm using that to guide me while drawing her eyes. I draw an upper lash line that extends a bit further than her eye, and follow the sculpt for her under eye and waterline. Then, I carefully draw her irises. I make sure to leave more of the whites of her eyes visible on the outer edges than the inner edge. When you do that, the doll looks like they're looking forward. I tried adding white to her sclera, but my pencils weren't sticking too well. Nevertheless, I added a few highlights on her nose and Cupid's bow, and start mapping out the colors in her irises. My pencils here are obviously too dark, but this will give me a guideline to work from later when I add paint. After another coat of sealant, I go back in with some pink pastels for her lips and her eyebrows. I want these to kind of fade from pink to purple to match her hair. Now that we have everything mapped out, I can use darker pencils to emphasize everything I already drew. I use dark brown for her eyes and a medium brown to add lines to her lips. With a fresh coat of sealant, I can use my white pencil again for her eyes and it sticks a lot better. With a light blue pencil and at a very bad camera angle, I add the little face stickers on her cheeks. I like how these almost replace Clawdeen's freckles. With my white pencil, I carefully draw her curly edges. I like these so much on Natalie, I couldn't keep myself from giving this doll some too. With my black pencil, I darken her lash line and add a few individual lashes. With a purpley pinky kind of color, I give her some individual eyebrow hairs as well. She's starting to look so cute, but at this point I was ready for paint. I mix some of my neon paint because I love how vibrant they are, and fix the colors in her earrings first. That's better. Then I use a light pink for her lips. This color was too light though, so you'll see me change it a few times until I get it right. For her eyes, I start by giving her some minty eyeshadow. Then, making sure that you can't see a single thing that I'm doing, I add the blue underneath her eyes. With a light purple and my tiniest brush, I give her those individual eyebrow hairs again. I also added pink to the inner corners of the eyebrows, but the purple is a bit light, so I darken those and start adding her little face stickers. Because the lips were too light, I go over them with a darker pink. Another bad camera angle later, and she has cute curly edges. With an even darker pink, I add her lip lines and creases again. And while working with the different colors, I slowly add the rainbows to her irises. I use white for her sclera, and off camera decided to change her lip color. Again. I use a color that's a few shades lighter than her skin tone to add highlights to her nose, eyebrows, and Cupid's bow. With a dark brown, I carefully go over the outlines of her eyes, especially where some paints went over the lines before. And finally, with some black, I can carefully add her lashes again. Lashes always make the eyes look so much better, don't they? As a final touch, I add white catch lights to her irises with a dotting tool. With her face up done, we can finally remove this hair burrito and reveal... Oh, she looks so cute! love how the Faceup matches her hair. Off camera, I styled and decorated her hair with some more flags and trinkets, just like the ones I used for her clothes and accessories. So we have the doll, her little rainbow bag, her Crocs, her floofy rainbow skirt, her t-shirt, her rainbow tights, leg warmers, her hands, and all her accessories. So, what do you think? I really love this doll. I think she's the most colorful doll I've made so far, and I had so much fun making her. I also tried a lot of new things during her process, like the thick yarn hair, using Epoxy Sculpt for the first time, and her shoes. I'm so proud of these because they're unlike any other shoes I've ever made. I think the perfect name for our rainbow Decora girl is Musoke. Musoke is an African name of Ugandan origin, I believe, and it means rainbow. Specifically, the rainbow that comes after it rains. I called her this and wanted to do this rainbow theme because with all of the bad stuff happening right now to members of the LGBTQIA+ community, this is the hope and the wish that I have this Pride Month. That we'll move out of this storm and into a world that is softer and kinder and more beautiful. What did you think of Musoke? And let me know in the comments down below how you celebrated Pride Month. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching Musoke's process just as much as I enjoyed making her. I hope you all had a fantastic Pride Month filled with love and acceptance from the people closest to you. If you like this video and you think I deserve it, please leave a like and comment for me below. And if you'd like to see more dolls like this, you can subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. For my next doll, I'm making something special to celebrate all of you guys. She's been a long time coming, but I think she's going to be a lot of fun to make. So, if you don't want to miss that when it comes out, boop that subscribe button, stick around, and as always, stay golden. I'll see you next time. Bye!